the restoration rights that we've been talking about here for the first segment of the program, and that is, we've talked about this before, Governor, but there's a separation here between voting rights, serving on a jury, running for political office, and owning a gun. Yeah. Guns are not covered in all this, correct?
No, they're not. And this is where some of the Commonwealth's attorneys say, oh, I have more work to do now. I'm a little dismayed to think that people that actually walked into these courtrooms with a piece of paper to a judge to sign it to get their gun rights back, and no one did any background, no one did anything. That's not our responsibility. It is the sole responsibility of the judicial system whether to restore someone's gun rights. And it's their job. And I tell them, do your job. That's your responsibility.
Well, they are government workers. I mean, come on.
Well, I'm sorry. Work a little harder. But here's the issue. And let me be honest here. I restored the rights of 18,000 felons before I did this action on April 22nd. Nobody ever raised the issue before, Jimmy. How about those other 18,000? Nobody raised it before. So my point is, I'm a little dismayed the thought that these people would just walk in, a judge would just sign the order. If you have an issue with these felons on gun rights, don't approve them then. Plain and simple. It's your responsibility. I have zero say. It is the judicial, and the prosecutors got to do their work to prepare it. And if you're not comfortable giving the rights back, then don't do it. But please don't automatically sign these orders to give their gun without some background being done. And I think what I have now...
Wait a minute, didn't you just sign an order without background being done, restoring all these felon voters?
We did a lot of work. I spent 2 years working on it.
So you went over everybody, all those names that were on that list that ended up getting the restoration, all those names were gone over?
No, we got the order. We got the list from the Department of. Ours was, are you a felony? Done was parole and supervision.
Right.
That's what we determined.
Right.
And that kind of came to us from the DOC. But with a huge document, they call them fat fingers. Obviously, maybe a Social Security number, maybe a wrong number had been punched in. But when it comes to the restoration of rights, they make that determination. A judge has to sign the order. And I sent a letter out to everybody.
So you can send
Jimmy,
them a blanket list. It still has to go in front of the judge, and the judge still has to sign it.
They have to decide on gun rights. That petition is to them, not to the governor. And we sent a letter to every Commonwealth attorney, when this happened, saying it is your responsibility. You have to do your own due diligence. And if you're not comfortable, don't approve them. But please, don't just automatically sign these. It's your job. Do your job. This is what you were elected to do.
Yeah. For example, let's say you had somebody whose voting rights have been restored, all the other rights have been restored, but they spent like 25 years in prison for multiple armed robberies.
Yep.
That might be something you're uncomfortable giving a gun to for nothing else, for fear that they might be tempted to go back to their previous occupation.
So. And I would think the judge should have on his desk from the prosecutors a recommendation, a report. Here's what that individual is charged with.
So you can say, well, if we feel safe sending them to a voting booth, we just don't feel safe giving them a gun.
And there's a big difference. I mean, letting someone, just as we had to do our due diligence, and there's issues with that as we have discovered. We're trying hard to make sure the list is, but we had to go through who is a, former felon and who's done with supervised probation and parole. They need to do the same thing. But let's be clear. It is the judicial branch's responsibility to restore gun rights. It is not an executive branch function. You should not have relied on us. It is your responsibility. And all I'm telling everybody, do your job.
Okay.
That's what you're elected to